Hey there everybody, today we're going to be talking through grids, how to use them and how to create them in Sketch. So let's begin. Firstly, let's open up Sketch right here and create a new document. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is to create a large, medium and small device size. So to do this we simply go to Insert, Artboard, and here on the right hand side you can see desktop, iOS devices, etc. So desktop HD should be fine for us, 1440 by 1024. We'll just zoom out there. Okay, that's great. Next up we'll want a medium sized device, so again we'll hit A for Artboard, and over here we can go iPad Pro Portrait, which is fine, so that's 1024 by 1366. And lastly, what we'll need is a smaller device size. So here again, Artboard, we can just select an iPhone 7, which is fine. Okay, great. So we've got our large, medium, and smaller device sizes. So how do I go about creating grids for these artboards? Well, I use a plugin called Ruler Grid. So if you go over to Sketch Toolbox and download Ruler Grid, head back, highlight your artboard, hit Plugins, Ruler Grid. Okay, and let's see what it gives us here. Okay, so it's asking us for the width of our website. So this is the maximum width. So let's say, for example's sake, the maximum width of our website in this instance will be 1280 pixels, which is quite a common size. Okay, that's cool. So the next thing it's asking us is how many columns we'd want. Now typically for larger scale devices, desktops essentially, you would use 12 columns. For medium-sized devices you would use 8, and for smaller screens like mobiles, etc., you would use 4. So in this instance we're doing our desktop grid, so we would use 12. So hit OK. Okay, cool. So it's asking us how wide we'd like our gutters to be. Now the gutter is the space, the size of the space in between each of our columns. Now we'll never know the exact size of our gutters because when we collapse the browser, that value will change all the time. It's a percentage based value, so we'll never actually get a fixed value of what it actually is. So for design's sake we can just set it as anything really, to something low, 10, 15 or 20 pixels. So in this case we can set it as 20 pixels. Okay, cool. So once we hit OK we can see our grid pop up automatically, which is brilliant. So now let's move on to our medium sized device and we'll just do exactly the same again. So we'll hit Plugins, Ruler Grid. So it's asking us exactly the same again. So the maximum size of our grid here is 1024, but that will be hitting either side of the browser, so we don't really want that. So we'll add like a little bit of padding on either side, maybe 20 pixels of padding on either side. So my maths is absolutely awful, so we'll do 1024 minus 20 on the right hand side, and then minus another 20 on the left hand side. So the maximum width of our site for a medium device will be 984. So we'll just change that to 984. And then again, how many columns will we like? So like I said a moment ago, typically on medium devices we would use 8 columns. And then again, a gutter's width doesn't really matter so much, but 20 pixels will be fine for us right here. Sweet. Okay, so we've got our grid popped up on medium devices, and then we can see the padding on the left hand side and the right hand side. So just zoom out a little bit there. And then lastly we'll do that same for our small device. So again, Plugins, Ruler Grid. So again, how wide would we like our website to be? Okay, so for the iPhone 7 example that we've got here, the total width is 375. So we'll do the same again and minus 40 off of that to give us a bit of padding on either side of the browser. So yes, my maths is absolutely awful. 375 minus 40 is 335. So that's the maximum size of our grid. How many columns would we like? So like I said, small devices typically adhere to 4 columns. And again, the gutter size 20 is absolutely fine. And there we go. We have our grid for small devices. We have our grid for medium devices and large devices. Okay, cool. Now we've got our grids set up, we want to actually explore how we can go about creating a page layout and how that works on large, medium and smaller devices. So I'm going to run with an example here of an online shop. We're going to build a page of a product on a typical online shop, okay? And I'll show you how that translates into some really basic examples of some code and how we can scale that out to other devices. So let's just start off here. So let's pretend we've got a product image, okay? So we put our product image in here. this is our image, okay? This is a really basic wireframe. And our image is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns wide. Next to the image, we'd probably want a product title and some text. So let's just go and grab some lorem ipsum. And what we want to do here is we want to put in the text. Okay, so we've got some text here. Let's just take the bold off, get this looking reasonably presentable. Let's just set that to 20. And then let's put in a product title. So product title, let's say. Set that to bold. Okay, cool. So lastly, now on this example of our wireframe, we'd probably want a buy now button. So let's just put in a simple buy now button right here. Again, this will be 5 columns like you can see there. Let's just say buy now. Okay. Let's just vertically and horizontally align that, and we'll group that button there. Okay, so here you can see that our product image is using up 7 columns, and our product title and buy now button is using up 5 columns. So what does that actually mean when we come around to coding it? So I'm going to give you a basic example here. When we flip to Sublime, and what we're going to do here, when we use something like Bootstrap or a similar bit of software, you'll encounter some predefined classes that you can use to call out those columns. And basically what this does is that it allows us to control the structure of the website a lot easier when it scales from large to medium to small devices. So let's just say, for example, our product detail page there. So we've got a div with our column width, let's say it was for desktop, and we're using 7 columns, okay? And then this is a really rough example. We've got our image inside, and then we're closing off that div. And then next to our product image, we have column. It's on desktop, and it's on 5 there. We're using 5 columns. And then we have our title, our description, and our buy now button. This is not semantic code. This is just a really easy example to show you how this relates to the design. So these predefined classes that you can see here, column D7, column D5, you'll find that you'll get similar predefined classes, not exactly the same, but very, very similar. And basically what this does in the code is that it's saying, okay, well, this section here is 7 columns, and this section beneath it is 5 columns. And like I say, that enables us to control the structure really easily. So when we go back to our design, we can see how well that represents our design here. So we've got our product image here, which is 7 columns, and our description and our buy now button as 5 columns. And we can see how that relates directly into the code. So how do we scale that across medium and low devices? Well, let's try it on the excuse me. Let's try it on the medium iPad device first. So when we come to scaling our design between large, medium and small devices, there's no real rigid set of rules or instructions or how-tos or anything like that. What you have to do is really ascertain what is the best use of space. Now, typically for an iPad and a desktop, there's not a tremendous amount of difference. So let's just jump straight into it. So let's just say here we have our product image. Let's say that's 4 columns wide. Because we want it to be quite big, we want the user to notice it, and it's using up half of the user's screen, so I think that's pretty fair. And then besides that, what we're going to do is simply add our product description, and instead of 5 columns like so, this is going to be 4 columns wide. And then lastly, we want to copy over our buy now button. Like so, to 4 columns there. Just make sure that's horizontally aligned. Okay, so what we've done there is we've ascertained the most logical use of space for the medium device. And basically what I wanted to try and achieve here is to still get a large product image and the product title and buy now button all on the same horizontal axis, and there's definitely enough room for me to do this on a medium device, so this is absolutely fine. So what I'm using here, instead of 7 columns I'm using 4, and instead of 5 columns I'm using 4 again for a medium device. So let's just jump back to the code. Now again, you won't encounter the exact same predefined classes, but similar Bootstrap software will adopt the same principles. So for tablets, what we'd use here is we'll call another class. So we'll do column tablet 4, and then for the section beneath it we'll do column tablet 4. So what these classes are now telling the code is that on desktops I want you to adopt 7 columns, and for tablet I want you to adopt 4. And similarly for down here, for desktop I want you to adopt 5, and for tablet I want you to adopt 4. So that's mimicking exactly what we have in our design here. 4 columns for the product image and 4 columns for the product detail, the title and the buy now button. So lastly, what we want to do is replicate this onto smaller devices. Now again, there's no set of rigid rules. We just want to use the best amount of space possible. So it's no, you'll be able to tell Amazon, Facebook, eBay, apps like this. Typically, images will use the full width of the browser because you want to see the product detail. You want the user to engage with the products and the images as much as possible. So the images typically for mobile or small devices use the entire width of the screen. So what we'll do here is we will set this image to 4 columns, which is all of the columns that we have, including the gutter space. And then beneath that, what we want to do is, well, the only logical place for us to put the description and the title is beneath it, because there simply is not enough space on the left hand or the right hand side of the image. And we'll scale that text down a little bit. And then lastly, what we want to do is put our button on the beneath the product copy. And just make sure that it is to the same grid. So again, what we've done between the medium and the small device is we've used the best use of logical space. There is no space to put the product title, description or the button to the right or left hand side of the product image on a portrait mode. So the only logical place for us to go is beneath these elements. So again, when we go back to our code here, what we'll want to do here again is exactly the same. Columns, mobile, 4. So this is using all of our column widths. And again, for this class, we'll want to use column, mobile, 4. So this is a really basic example. Again, this isn't a really lucid example of some of the Bootstrap classes that you will see, but it's a very similar adaptation as to what you might encounter. So you can see how these classes on desktop, tablet, and mobile relate from your code into your design. And that is essentially the fundamentals of designing for a responsive website.